Hey friends, it's Rabbi Greg, and here we are for another Torah Tuesday. By the way, I use he, him pronouns, and I'm excited to share some cool stuff in the Torah portion with you today. But first, I want to start with a story. I became a rabbi later in life. I had 10 years in the corporate world doing product marketing. I was a stay-at-home father for almost 10 years. I wrote a couple books, got into teaching some Jewish spiritual stuff. After that, I went to rabbinical school. And oh, yeah, but even before I was in the corporate world, I was a scientist for 10 years with a PhD in biology. So, why am I telling you all this? Well, last High Holidays was my first time leading High Holiday services. I'm a solo rabbi at B'nai Torah in Westminster, Colorado. It was the evening service of Rosh Hashanah, my very first one. We're getting started, and we had a little minor blip earlier, which we navigated. Well, we're all standing, and we open the ark to say the Baruch Hu, and there's no Torah in the ark. And there is a gasp from the congregation. I mean, it's the high holidays, it's a full house, everybody's there. I've been on the job less than 2 months. There's no Torah. And the cantor said, "Who forgot to bring up the Torah?" You see, we share space at a church, and usually we use a downstairs room, which we have set up to our liking. But for the high holidays, we're up in the main sanctuary. We cover up all the crosses. It's really very nicely laid out. We brought up the ark, but no Torah. So my mind is racing. Well, should we just do the prayer without the Torah while someone goes and gets it? But one of the former presidents, this guy Mike, says, "Don't worry, I know what to do." And he goes sprinting down the aisle of the church sanctuary, and we hear him clumping down the back steps. So he's going down to get the Torah, and then we're all just kind of standing there. Maybe I did a little vamping. Maybe the cantor sang something. I don't remember, but we're all kind of sitting there waiting. And then we hear him coming back up, and we hear the thump, 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 thump of his footsteps. And we also hear these bells ringing. We hear these bells, and I'm thinking, okay, those are the bells that are on the Torah. And then sure enough, he comes out and he enters with the Torah, going as fast as he can back down the aisle. And so at this point, I said, "The Torah is in the house." And so he brought the Torah up, he put it in the ark. We said our prayers and we continued. And I have to say, that was like a great sign for me. I'm like, all right, this is just a wonderful congregation. Nobody freaked out. We just solved the problems. We had a little laugh. But this story relates directly to this week's Torah portion, these bells and hearing the bells. Let me show you why. This week's portion is called Tetzaveh. Like all Torah portions, it is named after um, one of the first words. Tetzaveh, which is ve'ata tetzaveh, you will further instruct. So you may recall the last Torah portion was all about the architectural details of building the Mishkan, our mobile sanctuary, the tent of meeting. I am not a handy person, not like my favorite Torah portion, building stuff. So this one, what are we getting into? Um, it's about making the clothes for Aaron, who is the high priest for dignity and adornment. I'm also not like a super fashionista, my nice red sweater notwithstanding. Uh, so I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't one of my favorites either. Interestingly, I my rabbi mentor told me a story where this was a young teenage girl's Torah portion, and she loved fashion, and so this was like the greatest thing in the world. So anyway, we start going along. Here are the different clothes you're going to make: a breast piece, a robe, etc., etc. All these really beautiful colored yarns, there's stones with engravings and braided gold ropes, and there's jewels that are in this breastplate that he'll wear. And then as we kind of keep traveling along, let me see, did I go past it? I did write down a note where this is. Um, so they're talking about like his sort of uh, the kind of tunic that he would wear. And along the hem, along the bottom of this robe, there are bells of gold all around it, a golden bell and a pomegranate all around the hem of the robe. So Aaron shall wear it, and the sound of it is heard when he comes into the sanctuary before God and goes out, that he may not die. So, the whole theology of can you come into the presence of God unannounced, and you need God to kind of hear you're coming. But I'm going to save this because I just love telling this story. Oh my goodness. I'm going to pause the recording for just a second. Okay, we're back. What I had to do is I forgot to set up my the source sheet so I could start sharing these sources. So I just paused, did that, now we're back. Okay, so on the hem of this, there are these gold bells. So I want to add this to the sheet. Okay, and we'll add this next verse as well. Okay, so this will give us an opportunity to have like a little vignette about um, about the clothes. Um, I don't know if there are other sources that can kind of support this story. We'll just take a quick look. So here is a clarification. It's a golden bell and then like a golden pomegranate next to it. That might be interesting. Um, what we're seeing here, like we saw last time with these detailed instructions. Okay. Chizkuni, anything here? Okay, so again, a little bit of a clarification. The golden pomegranates also made a sound. So there's something about this idea that the holiness of the high priest and the holiness of the Torah their presence is announced even before you can see them by the sound of these bells. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to say about the bells for now. I might go back and just do a little bit more digging, but I have a couple of other things that are kind of juicy that I want to get to as well. So, um, I want to talk about the breastplate. So there's this breastplate that kind of goes over the tunic and is in front, and there's cords of gold. Um, and there's some rings. This all kind of fits together. And then you make this frame, this golden frame, and you attach it. And this breast piece will be held. You know what? I think what I was looking for, it was a little bit earlier. Okay, so yeah, we're kind of making stuff. There is cords. Um, And then there's this frame. Okay, so they call it, here's this breastplate with these various yarns. And so, oh, here it is. Set in it mounted stones in 4 rows. And then here are the names of all of the different thing of the 12 stones, 4 rows of 3 stones each. So the stone shall correspond in number to the names of the sons of Israel. Okay, so we'll keep this one. And where am I going with this? Like, who cares about the stones, Rabbi Greg? Um, well, I'll tell you. I did some looking around, and again, if we think about the Torah, this is a Torah breastplate. What do we see? 4 rows of stuff, 4 rows. And here are the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, just like we saw here. 12 corresponding to the names, they should be engraved like seals, each with its name for the 12 tribes. And so I'll get a copy of this, either this breastplate or get another one, and I will include it. And I think it's interesting that, again, this holiness, the priests were holy. It was the priest's job to talk to God and to do the sacrifices. But now we communicate with the divine through the Torah. We read the words and we try to interpret and figure out, well, what's the spiritual meaning for this? What's the guidance on how we should live? So let me refresh this. Okay, let's see. The stone should correspond to number. I'm going to put here a placeholder for image of breastplate. And discussion question. Because, it doesn't matter to us. Is it relevant to us today that how we adorn the Torah has a relationship to how the Torah describes how the high priest um, was dressed? I think it is interesting, and I think it's relevant, and the clothes you wear in different circumstances. And because we treat the Torah this way as a sacred object with sacred clothing, we've made that meaning. So that's worth, I think, digging into a little more. Now, as we keep going, describing, okay, you have this breastplate, here's the cords to fashion it up here. I cannot visualize this stuff at all. Other people have like made various drawings of this is what Aaron's outfit would have looked like. Still more cords holding breastplate in place. And so Aaron shall carry the names of the sons of Israel on the breastplate of decision over his heart when he enters the sanctuary for remembrance before God at all times. Okay. And then let's just keep that. I'm not sure it's going to be relevant. This is the one. Inside the breastplate of decision, you shall place the Urim and Thummim, so that you are over Aaron's heart when he comes before God. Thus, Aaron shall carry the instrument of decision for the Israelites over his heart before God at all times. What in the world is this talking about? What are these Urim and Thummim? And what is an instrument of decision? Is that like is that like his iPhone? He gets out his iPhone and he opens the Chat GPT app. He does Urim GPT and he consults with the divine. Maybe. Let's see. Let's see what the commentators have had to say here. Okay, well, first, as we often do, we start with Rashi. Um, so it says there was an inscription of the secret name of the divine, and that sort of illuminated the words or and meor. So or means light. So this Urim maybe is related to a light. Okay. Um, so here's talking about in the second temple. This was something that was used. So second temple, that's 2,000 years ago. We have relevance of this. We have um, evidence from the second temple. We have the remains of it, right? So now, is this a historically correct thing? Is this evidence that this device was around at the time of the Second Temple? I'm not sure. Um, Now I'm reading this. Okay, this breastplate also had some like magical atonement power. So there's something going on here. I also think it's interesting. So I'm going to go back to that Rashi again. That makes reference to this Urim and Thummim. It looks like it says it was in the book of Numbers. So one of the things that we can do is we can say, where else in the Jewish Bible does this Urim Thummim thingy come up? So if we look at Tanakh, Tanakh is the Hebrew word for the Jewish Bible. And okay, let's see. We had heard it was in Numbers, so let's take a look. Um, so tomorrow, put fire in them. He shall present himself to Eleazar the priest, who shall on behalf seek the decision of the Urim before God. Okay, let's open this because I want to know the context. What's happening here? God answered Moses, single out Joshua, have him go before the priest, invest in him some of your authority, and then the Eleazar, the priest, will consult with this Urim thing and say, is God okay? This is where Moses is handing over power to Joshua. So this is, I think, quite an interesting example. We could not have the transfer of power from Moses to Joshua, without uh, the priest Eleazar, who was Aaron's son, to kind of consult this Urim thing. That's kind of interesting. Let's keep going. Where else does this appear in the Tanakh? Okay, Deuteronomy. This is the last book of the Bible. Tithes of new grain. All right, something about new prophets. Um, okay, and of Levi, he said, let your Thummim and Urim be with you. Okay, I'm going to add this to the sheet. But what's going on here? All right, when I click on this Deuteronomy thing, this is the blessing which Moses, agent of God, bade the Israelites farewell before he died. Oh, wow. So he's giving blessings to each of the tribes. Levi, that was the tribe of the priests. And so he's talking about, um, keep an eye on this thing. Um, so I'm going to add this kind of framing sentence as well. So these are two big transitions where Moses is saying goodbye. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to do. I want to add this to the sheet. It's not easy kind of talking and navigating this at the same time, but we're really in kind of a nice little rabbit hole here today because we're still don't quite know what this Urim and Thummim is. Um, let's see, this was last week. We were at 28:30. So I'm going to go to the table of contents and I'm going to go actually to 29 and then backtrack to 30. Okay, so here, oh, we want 28:30. Okay. Um, okay, so we get the Urim and Thummim. And we're looking where else this showed up because I saw something familiar. Um, here's the first book of Samuel. And if we look at what it says, and Saul inquired of God, but God did not answer him either by dreams or by the Urim or by the prophets. I'm going to add that to the sheet. But where do we see this before? We saw it a couple of weeks ago. When we were looking at the Witch of Endor story. Saul was abandoned. The Urim and Thummim didn't answer him. He outlawed raising the dead and talking to ghosts. But what does he do? He goes to the Witch of Endor and talks to ghosts. So this was clearly to the biblical writers like something that was kind of a big deal. It was not it's not fully explained in any of these places, but it's referred to a lot. Okay, so we're in Tanakh. So we have it in the book of Samuel and Leviticus and Numbers, but I'm surprised it doesn't show up later. So I did some investigation of this when I was preparing, and I used a different website. This is called the Blue Letter Bible. It's a great source for lots of different translations, all of the different Christian translations, but they have something um, called Strong's Concordance, where you can look up this word Urim. What are all the places where it shows up in the Jewish Bible? Okay, well, here it is in Exodus 30, Leviticus, Numbers we looked at, Deuteronomy we looked at, First Samuel we looked at, but then here we get Ezra and Nehemiah. So Ezra 263. And Nehemiah, it's the same thing. So I'm going to go back to, I'm actually going to open a new sheet. I'm going to go to Safaria. We'll go to Ezra 263. So Tirshatha ordered them not to eat of the holy things until a priest with the Urim and Thummim should appear. So first we'll add this to the sheet. But you're probably wondering, as I was, like what's this have to do with anything? What is going on here? Um, I to answer that question, we're actually going to go over to the other one. Because if we look once again in Midrash Halacha, oh, it's not in there. All right. Um, this is telling the story of people returning to the land of Israel. This is the end of the exile. These are the people who came up from among the captive exiles who returned to Jerusalem. Okay, so this is a really big deal story. This is the end of the Babylonian exile. And so they're going back to the land of Israel to build the second temple. And they're getting this instructions, don't eat anything until the priest with this kind of big deal Urim and Thummim is there to kind of bless what you're eating. So we've seen this at a couple of, it's kind of made these cameo appearances, and it seems to imply that it had a pretty big role. Well, let's see, can we learn more about what this role is? All right, we've got a little bit of information from Rashi and from Samuel. Um, let's look at some of the commentary. Okay, Ibn Ezra, what does Ibn Ezra have to say? Okay, and you shall put on the breastplate of judgment. Judgment refers to the laws of God and his decrees. And these things that people inquire of the Urim and Thummim. Um, so maybe is this something that tells the future? That's kind of interesting. I thought this whole witches and sorcerers were outlawed two weeks ago. But somehow here the high priest can use these devices to tell us about the future. Okay, what other commentary do we see? Um, what does Rambam have to say? Okay, the breastplate of judgment. Um, okay, so he's talking about how are these made? Um, um, he's citing Rashi. They have the name of God in them, the sacred names of God. And then he says there's all these details about the skilled people creating all of these other stuff, but there's no description of like how these two pieces were made. It's almost like there's something supernatural about them. So I need to kind of comb through this, but I'm really, really taken with this idea that, there's something almost what it doesn't say about them tells us more about them because it says so much about the creation of all these other things. Okay, what about Sforno? So, okay, here he's saying that the priests would kind of use them to pray for exoneration. Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't particularly strike me as interesting. Um, Rabbi Abachia, we often find interesting things there. Okay, so he makes an interesting grammatical observation. He says there's a hey before them, ha-urim and ha-tumim, as if, oh, yeah, we know what those things are, but they've never been mentioned before. Um, so I'm wondering what he wants to say with that. Maybe there's something there, maybe not. Definitely worth going on this kind of prototype source sheet because I can go back later and look at them and see if it's something I want to dig into further. Other other things. Okay. I am always interested in the Targum. This was the translation of the Torah into Aramaic. So he's talking about the breastplate, and here you get a translation and a little bit of a of an interpretation as well. Um, okay, so there's something kind of about remembering the holy name. Yeah, maybe. I need to look at that in a little bit more detail. Okay, Second Temple. Whenever I see this, I always want to take a look because the time of the Second Temple, there were so many different Judaisms. It's kind of just like today. Like, yeah, there were people doing temple worship. There were also early synagogues and people were reading the Torah. Um, oh, we looked at this last week, the War of the Jews. This was the work by Josephus. And I did peek ahead at this, and it was kind of just describing all of the booty and the things that were looted from the temple. Allegorical interpretation of Genesis. This was written by Philo of Alexandria. Maybe it's a name you've never heard of, but Alexandria in Egypt had one of the world's biggest Jewish communities. It's where the Library of Alexandria was. They translated the Torah into Greek, and it's called the Septuagint. And this is what was used by a lot of the later Christian communities, the Greek Torah. So Philo is a fascinating figure. What does he have to say? And you shall put the oracle of judgments, the showing him the truth, and it shall be upon Aaron's breasts. The oracle, okay, I am not getting what this is talking about. So let's open it up. Let's see, is there something here in the context? So here's the sacred word and discourse concerning the high spirit concerned at curing and ailing it. So this is like a Greek philosopher dude. He's like a Greek and Roman philosopher bringing it together with Jewish teachings. And I think what he's saying, I'm going to like see if I can add all three of these and I'm going to try to digest it a little more. But I think what he's saying is that this was kind of used for logical reasoning. When people are all, yeah, the oracle is decided, was said can be uh, approved as well judged, but the sacred writer is leading us to think of the word spoken with judgment and discernment. For he tells us that the oracle is not the untested or counterfeit one, but the oracle of judgments. So it kind of helps tell if someone makes an argument, is this a good argument or a BS argument? Is it soundly reasoned or is it just kind of smoke and mirrors? So I think that's what he is talking about. So interesting to bring this Greek philosophy, this kind of Greek philosophy take into our Jewish teachings. Um, let's see, is there anything else I want to kind of look at? Um, so Martin Buber's translation of the Midrash may have something interesting. So this is talking about Aaron going to meet his brother, brotherly relationships, the other brothers hating Joseph. Um, And here it's talking about Moses and Aaron. I sent Aaron to visit you. Okay, this is fine. Are we going to get anything about the Urim and the Thummim? Um, okay, his heart was happy at his brother's greatness. Um, I think this is trying to make a point about their relationship. I don't know. This might be a little far afield. I'm going to keep it because if anything is remotely interesting, I will keep it. And is there an angle that I want to talk about kind of the brotherly relationship between Aaron and Moses? I mean, this piece was a pretty big deal, and Moses seems pretty happy to give it to his brother. Um, Whereas there's not kind of any of the jealousy that we've seen in other sorts of relationships. Um, Last but not least, let's see, is there anything else in the Midrash that I want to look at? I don't think so. What about in the Talmud? Uh, Sota has the whole Sota ritual is really cringy, and it's not something that I want to get into now, but it does have some interesting bits in it. So let's see. Um, from the time when the early prophets died, the Urim and Thummim was nullified. So, this is a little bit interesting to me as well, because what I think is going on here, and we can open it up, but I think what they're talking about is, well, if this was such a cool thing, why don't we see it today? Um, and yeah, this is talking about all of these things that were in the Bible, like the shamir was like this ancient magical creature. Why isn't that around anymore? Um, so this may or may not fit in, but I think there's probably a lot of good stuff here. I think there's more than enough to talk about. So first, I could tell the story about the bells and then relate the bells to of the Aaron's robe to the Torah. And then we have the breastplate and the synagogue where I did my internship, Beth Jacob in Redwood City, they had this fantastic breastplate, which really showed the stones really well. They weren't real stones, it was silver engravings of the stones. Um, and so that's kind of why I like this. So we'll have like a little bit about the breastplate. Um, and maybe I'll try to find another source. I'll add something here. Source or question about the Torah dressings and Aaron's dressings. Maybe there's a connection to holiness. Does how we dress matter? Okay, so there's a lot of you don't want the Torah scroll to be wrapped in a shmata and a rag. You want it to be treated with dignity and reverence. So then the second part, we'll talk about this Urim and Thummim. Um, so we have Rashi's bit on judgment. Again, how we've seen it in different parts. It's a part of the Joshua story. It is part of Moses's goodbye story. And it's part of the book of Samuel, where it seems like this is something he relied on to communicate with God. And when God said, You're dead to me, God wasn't kidding. It no longer worked. And then we also see in the book of Ezra, when the people are coming back from the Babylonian exile, they had to wait for the priest with these things to kind of bless them for what they should be able to eat. A little bit more about the breastplate of judgment. This was a really big, long thing, but I think I liked the construction. Like this almost is like a mystical thing, like, that just kind of showed up. Um, and then Rabbi Batya is kind of making similar things. Um, the Targums. And then here's this allegorical piece, like how would a philosopher deal with this sort of mystical idea? And I think I need to kind of read and edit this down. I think he's saying, well, it's like a truth detector. Is this a good argument or is it a BS argument? And then there was this business about um, why isn't it around anymore, and learning about the relationship between Moses and Aaron. That last one, I have a feeling I'm not going to talk about. That is it for Torah Tuesday today. Please come join us on Saturday. For Torah Saturday, you can join the live Zoom at 9 o'clock Mountain Time, which is 8 Pacific or 11 Eastern. If you've made it through this far in the video, please subscribe and like to the channel. Eventually, we're going to be doing these as live streams, but I'm still working through those technical details. So right now, I'm pre-recording them. Please visit rabbigregmarcus.com and look up Torah Tuesday and Torah Saturday, and you can sign up for the email list and get the Zoom link. Have a great week.